It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. We have a question from our friend Brandon who says, "Hey Ramsey, I recently lost my BJJ tournament. I lost every single match. How do I get over ruminating and torturing myself over the loss? Also, in retrospect, I feel like I was stronger and better than my opponents, but I had a really bad adrenaline dump in my first match that fatigued me through the rest of my matches. How do you deal with that adrenaline dump?" So we have two questions here. The first one, how do you get over torturing yourself over your losses? And how do you deal with an adrenaline dump? As far as the adrenaline dump and the jiu-jitsu tournament thing goes for me, I never experienced an adrenaline dump in jiu-jitsu tournaments. I did in fights, in MMA fights, in kickboxing matches, anything involving striking, anything with some really dire consequences, yeah. Prior to those matches, you could say there was mortal fear gripping my soul, and the adrenaline dump, man, that was a real thing. But jiu-jitsu tournaments, by contrast, felt very comfortable, like I'm going into the gym just to roll with some guys that I don't know yet. And maybe we'll be friends afterward. It's no big deal. The worst thing that's going to happen, I'll tap out, I'll learn a lesson, I'll be better next time. But I noticed something. When I go to jiu-jitsu tournaments, most of the competitors have not fought professionally. They haven't competed in a martial arts tournament with the dire consequences of getting knocked out or worse. And so they're experiencing this adrenaline dump you're talking about, this competition, performance anxiety, and they don't know how to handle it well or in a positive way, and it strips them of all their energy, and they underperform. And it sucks, and you think, if I could just perform in competition the way I do in the gym, I would do so much better, and you would. So what worked for me there, as far as jiu-jitsu tournaments goes, is I already had the context of experience of something much more severe, much more intense, much more dangerous. Now, am I telling you go out and do some cage fights? Well, I'm not telling you that, but something that I did, because not just in terms of combat sports, but in life in general, I used to suffer tremendously from performance anxiety. I couldn't talk in front of people. I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't have a normal conversation. It sucked. It was ruining my life, to be quite frank. So I made it a point to make myself uncomfortable, to put myself in these situations that would trigger the performance anxiety, because I thought, well, I need to get used to it. It's like the principle of progressive overload. Before I even knew what progressive overload was, I was trying that out with performance anxiety. Introduce myself to performance anxiety-inducing situations so I could get used to it. And then ramp it up a little bit, get used to that. Ramp it up even more, get used to it until it's no big deal. And so as a younger man, I would put myself in all these situations. I would go out and audition for plays and dance companies and sing in front of people and just do all this stuff that took me out of my comfort zone in a really big way. I would do stuff I wasn't good at all in front of people. I would embarrass myself. And it helped. I'm not saying that's the solution for everybody, but this certainly helped me. Again, progressive overload with performance anxiety. This gave me some results. And so when I stepped in front of large groups of people, whether I'm giving a speech, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm fighting or competing, it's not the crowds and the anxiety I'm thinking about. It's not the adrenaline dump taking over. I'm able to act rather than react. Now, your first question. How do you stop torturing yourself over a loss? You lost. You were heavily emotionally invested in the tournament, and you should be. If you want to win, you should be emotionally invested in winning. And a lot of people will tell you these comforting aphorisms like it's It's not about win or lose, it's how you play the game. And if you don't care about winning, okay, fine. If that helps make you feel better, great. But you're a competitor, you want to win, you cared. And it matters a great deal that you cared. I read a little post that Tom DeBlas put up on Instagram today about winning and losing in jiu-jitsu tournaments, and he had some comforting words to offer those who lost. He said, okay, you lost, take a couple hours, ruminate over it, then get over it, move on, go get better. But you're torturing yourself. And I appreciate what Tom said. It's not terrible advice. In fact, for most people, I'd say it's pretty good advice. Most people take things a little too seriously. I'm going to go in a different direction, though. I'll tell you a little story about my first Muay Thai fight. I got knocked out in about 30 seconds in my first professional Muay Thai fight. I was fighting a much more experienced guy, a bigger guy, and what generally happens under those circumstances happened to me. I got knocked out in about half a minute. And I ruminated over that for years, thinking, how could I have won that fight? Because I didn't accept this fight. I didn't accept this idea. I had put myself in an unwinnable situation. I didn't accept that. I thought, if I could go back and do it again, what would I do differently? And I thought a lot of things. I would get out there and train differently. I would train more. I would train for longer. I would make myself physically stronger. I would make myself more technical. I would do a lot of things. I would have to become a much better athlete, a much better fighter in order to win that fight. And so what did I do? I did exactly that. I trained. I got out there and trained until I could honestly tell myself, if I could go back right now and fight that version of that guy that beat me, I could win that fight. And when I could honestly admit that to myself, we moved on. We leveled up. We're not playing make-believe here. Like, tell yourself a comforting lie, I could have done that because I'm the stronger, better competitor. No, man. You become the stronger, better competitor in every possible way, including controlling your performance anxiety and that adrenaline dump that we were talking about. That's part of it. Tournaments aren't just about who's the better technician, who's stronger, etc. It's largely about who is better at performing. When people are watching, when there's a shiny gold medal on the line, when there's a tournament bracket, when we make a big deal and show out of it. It's a different thing, psychologically. It's the exact same thing, physically, but it's radically different psychologically. You're not just your body. You're not just your brain, you're the combination of your mind, your body, and your spirit. Harness the synthesis of those three concepts of self if you want to be a complete fighter. So I'm going to invite you to ruminate on this, torture yourself a little bit more. Because unlike what our friend Tom DeBlas said, I'm going to encourage you, torture yourself a little bit more over this loss. Allow that to push you to excellence. If it's not pushing you to excellence, if it's encouraging you to quit and bury your head in the sand, then okay, ruminate over it for a minute, then move on. But if not, if you can't get over it, then don't get over it. When I started fighting professionally in kickboxing, I lost a few kickboxing matches. I lost my first few kickboxing matches. And there were a lot of people on the internet calling me the worst fighter ever. Man, there was this chat forum. People were making fun of me a lot. A lot, man. Ramsey Dewey sucks. Ramsey Dewey's the worst. Look, he lost a couple of fights. Boo. Boo, hiss. Nobody likes hearing words like that spoken about themselves. So what did I do? Did I just brush it off? I was hearing it every damn day, man. Every day. Ramsey Dewey sucks. Ramsey Dewey's the worst. You can't fight. You will never succeed. So what did I think? I thought, well, I'm going to show them. I ruminated over that. I allowed those words to push me to improve. We started out with not being the worst fighter ever, and then leveling up and leveling up and leveling up. Until I remember one day, one of my detractors, who sent me no less than 100 disparaging messages on the internet telling me how much I sucked, one day, he said to me, I no longer believe that I could beat you in a fight. You got better, man. Those are words I never expected to hear. And they're words most people never hear from the angry people on the internet who tell you that you suck. But I remember thinking like, wow, that means a lot. That means a lot. Doesn't mean nothing, man. Why do we get out there and train? We do it to improve. You have this amazing opportunity with this loss to push you to excellence. I lost my first 6 BJJ tournaments. Here's why. I got disqualified from my first 6 BJJ tournaments. Because of minor rule infractions, just little things. I didn't understand the rules. And I got disqualified, and I remember ruminating over it, getting all mad, like, I shouldn't have been disqualified. It was just like this tiny little thing. And it made me so mad. Eventually, after getting disqualified the 6th time, I realized, wait, I need to make some changes, because this clearly isn't working. It's no fun going to a jiu-jitsu tournament, paying a bunch of money for the entrance fee, and then just getting disqualified when you're clearly the better competitor. And if you just followed the rules, whatever they were, because you didn't know them, you would have won. So what did I do? I went and I read the rule book, all 87 pages of it at the time. And I went back for my next tournament, and I followed the rules exactly. And it was stressful thinking, I can't do this, I can't do that, but I can do that. And I won 2 gold medals that day. And afterwards I was like, that was, that's all I had to do. That's all I had to do was make some adjustments based on my previous failures. My previous failures taught me how to win. They taught me all I needed to do was read the rules, understand the rules, and follow the rules, and then I would be able to win. Now, your previous failure has taught you. You're athletic enough to win, you're technical enough to win, but there's one thing holding you back. The performance anxiety, the adrenaline dump. So you know you have to address that issue. That's why you came and asked me for some advice. What's more stressful than a jiu-jitsu tournament? Lots of things. Anything you're not comfortable with is stressful. Ramp up the stress factor a little bit. There are lots of ways to do this in training. Some things I used to do with my fighters. In my first gym, I opened up. I had a sound system in my gym with some speakers. And I made this horrible recording of boos and jeers and static and just brown noise and this really negative soundtrack. And not all the time, but once in a while, when these guys were getting ready for fights, I would play this while they were sparring. And afterwards, they'd be like, man, I hate this. This is obnoxious. This is annoying. I'm underperforming here. I'm like, yeah. Do you know why we're doing this? This is emulating the crowd. This is emulating all these factors that you don't get in the gym. I would bring my nieces in sometimes because they were really good at trash talk. And while I would play this noise track in the background, I would have them shout out all this trash talk. You suck. Get out of there, you bum. If I was in there, I'd kick him in the head. What are you doing? And they were so good at it. And afterwards, my fighters would be like, dude, this is distracting. But come fight time, what happened? They were able to channel that out and focus on the fight. Will this work for everyone? Not necessarily. But you got to take some steps to up the psychological intensity of the training, not necessarily the physical. Because you want to physically perform the same way in the gym and the same way in a competition. And the one missing factor is psychological. Remember the triad of performance? Physiology, specificity, psychology. If we have all three of those factors, what happens? We have a much, much higher success rate than we would otherwise. Physiology, that's our physique, our strength, our athletic attributes, etc. If that's in check, great. We can win a lot of fights against people who suck, who are weak, etc. But if they've got their mind straight, their psychology in check, their specificity, their technique in check, physically weaker people can still beat you. So let's straighten this out. How long should you torture yourself over this loss until it pushes you in a positive direction? I lie awake at night after training in jiu-jitsu, and I think, my mind, my body just sort of goes through the motions like, man, what happened there? That didn't work out the way I wanted it to. How can I beat that one guy that I wasn't able to tap out today? How can I beat that guy who tapped me out today? And I rehearse these multiple times in my mind. I run through all these scenarios. You might think of that as torturing yourself. I think of it as like homework. I enjoy it, actually. And I puzzle through it until I'm able to solve the puzzle in my mind. And I go back to the gym and I perform a little bit better. And sometimes it works out. Sometimes there are still issues to figure out. And that's the process, man. How much should you torture yourself over a fight? Look, only roughly 50% of people win fights and 50% of people lose fights. And as far as jiu-jitsu tournaments, only one person in that bracket wins the gold. You have 16 people in that bracket. Only one of those guys comes in first. Everybody else loses. Even the second place. What is that? What's second place? You still lost. You beat some guys, but you ended up losing in the end. Third place? You lost more. Is there really a second place in a fight? I came in second in my fight. Woo! Woo! All the silver medalists out there are getting mad. Like, no, it counts. I beat some guys on the way up there. I feel bad now. But I had a friend who ended up winning second place at some big jiu-jitsu tournament. Man, he was mad. He took that medal and he just threw it in the trash. He was like, screw second place. Second place is a loser's trophy. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. How much does it matter if we win or if we lose? Is it really how we play the game? It's if that loss pushes you to excellence. It's if that win doesn't damn you to stagnation, thinking, I'm good enough right now. That's the problem with winning, man. If I had won my first jiu-jitsu tournament instead of losing my first 6, I would have thought, I'm doing everything right. I don't need to improve. I don't need to get better. If I had won my first Muay Thai fight via knockout instead of getting knocked out in the first 30 seconds, I would not have pushed myself to excellence. I would not have improved. I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be coaching fighters. I would not be a successful coach. The losses matter. And you might think of all these guys who are celebrated for having undefeated fight records. They're undefeated. Unblemished fight records. Okay, yeah, sure. In their professional fight career, maybe they haven't experienced a loss, but how many times have they been crushed in training on the way up? or an amateur competition. Or you have a guy in a smaller weight class and he spars with a bigger guy and suddenly gets humbled. Oh, crap. I'm not the biggest fish in town. A loss is a valuable thing. It's a really valuable thing. And that emotional investment, putting your ego on the line, that's a valuable thing. People say, check your ego, leave your ego at the door. No, don't. Bring it with you. That's you. That's yourself. Bring it with you. That's important. You need that if you want to grow. Because if you don't care, if you're not emotionally invested in a loss and you're just like, me, whatever, I don't care, you will never improve beyond that point. I love that you care. I love that it tortures you a bit. I love that it makes you uncomfortable and that you want to get better because that's the only way you're going to. Thanks for the question, my friend. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.